My beloved, I don't think I need to impress upon you that of all the practices and the ritual that you will ever be able to learn and master, there will be nothing more efficacious in your life than the healing breath. I'm not criticizing. I'm trying to teach. But I counted 5 of you who evidently had a hair coming down over your face or something or other. You see, to the degree that your consciousness was occupied in sweeping that hair from your face or doing something, just to that degree did you lose the opportunity of absolute perfection. Be ye perfect, even as your Father in heaven within you is perfect. That's what we're feeling after. I'm not criticizing, I know, but my beloved, it is a little difficult to allow ourselves completely to surrender. Some people I've heard them say they're rather afraid of going, whatever that means, going. But I and my Father are one. It's the transcendent truth of existence, or it's just not true. No, light. We know what light is. We see everything in the light of the sun. And if ever you've had the experience of seeing people who have lived under the ground a very great deal of their lifetime, they have a totally different hue, a different color. They are dwarfed. They seem to be a different breed. We are in the light. And when we become conscious of complete and permanent baptism, or yes, baptism in the light, well then you see, we are what the light is. I wonder if whether, John, do you mind lying on the floor here? Up there a bit so that most people can see you. Lie right with your head that way. Now here is what we call a human being. A pretty good specimen of a human being. Now, John, put your arms up making your body in the form of a cross. And you just rest and go to sleep if you want to. Now, there is a human being. Now, we can see that that human being is encased, so to speak, in its skins. And if we know anything about biology, physiology, anatomy, and so on, we get a fairly consistent idea of what a human being is. And we say that when we've seen one human being, we've seen the human race, which is true. Well, what is this thing? We know that it is composed of an aggregation of cell life. What activity is going on in that body as it is lying there? We know that there's a great deal of difference between the feet and the head. It is true that there is great wisdom in the feet. Once I was discussing somewhat along this, I wasn't discussing, I was listening, somewhat along this line to my old master in Tibet. And we sat with a little saucer of vegetable oil and a rush in the oil, and that was all the light we had. And it was just sufficient light to make the darkness visible. Well, I expressed surprise that with all the knowledge they had not made a better light than this. And he too was quite surprised to hear me express that opinion. Light, he said? Why, you are light. It was a rather blustery night, very dark. And my old temple was built on the side of a very high mountain. It is as if it were clinging to the side of the hill. And he said, come with me, and I went. And outside, he gathered up his gown, tucked it into his girdle, and he kicked off his sandals, and he ran up a canyon, which was studded with great boulders as high as this room or higher. And, of course, I couldn't see him, but he ran like a deer, and then he came back. And he said, could you do that? Well, I couldn't. I should unquestionably have broken my legs or broken my neck. And then he said, I have eyes in my feet. Then he explained a horse. A horse has got eyes in its feet. There's a great deal of difference between our feet and our head. Now, the cells that make the brain don't make the toenails. The cells that make any one particular thing have come down, as we say, have come down in the universal wisdom, so that there's never any doubt about the work of what is called God going on in this thing. It's going on at this instant. It's going on. Just imagine. Well, don't try. We would go crazy if we had to even imagine what is going on in our bodies. But you see, you can imagine this thing, and it's filled, it's cell life. Now, every cell, no matter what its duty or its purpose or its work, it is doing its work perfectly. I have no doubt that the cells that are making John's fingernails or toenails grow are doing their work, and I'm quite sure at the present time that right in his brain that work is going on, in his eyes, everywhere in the body, and it's all going on uniformly and so on. Well, you can imagine then that this thing is made up of cells, and then you can typify the cells as little tiny candles. It is impossible. There are some people who claim to know, and they base their reasoning on astronomy and all the sciences that they know. They tell you just about how many cells there are in this thing. I don't know. But I do know this, that it is an aggregation of cell life. Well then, if you can imagine every cell like a little candle, you can see then that those candles would be made in the form of John lying there. Simply numberless little candles. And then the ideal human being is where the candles never go out, or at least they're constantly changing, as you know, but the light never leaves. Well, then we say that John says, well, I don't know, it's Tidapa, I beg your pardon, that's Malay. It's Manana. And John doesn't care very much. Well, the cells are light, but then somebody comes to John, or he reads something or thinks something, he gets an inspiration, he says, my! And then you see all over this body, the lights are made greater. The lights all shine to an infinitely greater proportion than that which is ordinary in the subconscious life of a human being. And then you can't see John. You can't see even the form. You can see the form only as light. You can't even see the candles, because between the little tiny spaces, the interstices, the in-betweennesses of the cells, the light has sprung up. And there we see a blaze of light. We can't see the human being. We can't see even the cells. We can see the form, and that's light. Well then, John gets this great idea, and it stays with him, and as long as he is cogitating upon it and feeling it to be true and enthused by it, and it raises his ambition, and he says, I'm going to do this thing, why, so long as he's engaged in that kind of thinking and corresponding feeling, then the lights are constantly being fed by what? Well, we may say being fed by John's thought. What is John's thought? I don't know. Go and find out. John himself doesn't know. But we know that it works. And so you see, my beloved, a human being is a very different thing than the Mickey Mouse who rolls around the world half dead. Yes, he can be half dead. There are millions and millions and millions of human beings in the world today who are half dead. Perhaps it would be a better thing for them if they were dead. You know the way in which I use that word. Then it would give them a chance to begin again. But you see, we are light, and within us there are the candles. You don't put a candle under you know the story. You don't put it under a bushel. And there is that marvelous, the most marvelous thing in existence. So, John, thank you very much. You can get up and resume your chair. Now, my beloved, that's a very simple illustration, but it's a very powerful one, it seems to me. Let us always remember how great is God. And consequently, no matter what your theology may be, you may be a Roman Catholic, you may be an atheist, you may be a Congregationalist, a Baptist, anything. Well, I have no quarrel with you. But when we see what God is, then we see what we are. But we have to lose ourselves to find ourselves. A wonderful philosophy. But truth is always covered up a little. And when sometimes, or very often, when a human being gets a little truth, oh, how puffed up. He thinks that he knows it all. But when we go on and on, all the pride is taken away from us if we've got what it takes. And then we begin to surrender. And we find how beautiful it is to swim with the stream rather than to bucket. And we find that, why, all that there is directing me. My consciousness in every phase of understanding. So, my beloved, let us hold to that simple thought. Now, following on that thought, shall we together breathe your own spiritual breath? Now, this breath may be not quite familiar to you, but we will stand. We will turn to the left. Now, instantaneously, erect. This is the only breath with the feet apart. The feet well apart. Now, position. The elbows forward. First to the thought, with its consequent result. I thank thee, Lord, for the breath of my life. Now, altogether we exhale. Now I'm taking in life. 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 Now a big sniff inward. Hold it. Follow the voice. To the right. To the left. To the right. To the left. To the right. To the left. We stand erect. We exhale. And now we slowly drop the hands. And now I'm thinking upward to the top of my head. I'm thinking joy, 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 joy. And now simultaneously we send it out. I embrace this class. I embrace all in mental physics, wherever they may be. I embrace the city. I embrace the state. And now I watch as I see those great waves of light rolling out, growing of their own nature. I embrace the country. I embrace the whole world. I embrace the whole human race. And now, with the light of the divine wisdom within me, with my love, with my joy, with my life, I embrace every living thing. And now I stand fast, lest the light be too great for me, as it returns to me by that mystic fourfold law, not from the one point from which I sent it, but from all the points. It's coming back, back, nearer, nearer, nearer. And now it embraces me, it embosoms me, it overwhelms me. That light of the divine wisdom, that love, that joy, that life that comes to me from every living thing, so that I know my whole body, this wide universe, to be full of light, light, light. And now I will charge every cell of my physical body with that light of the divine wisdom, that love, that joy, that life that comes to me from every living thing, as feeling happy upward, giving thanks outward, slowly and a long, deep, sweeping sigh. Now I lock it up as I take another little breath and a quick sigh, and I sit down quietly. Now, my beloved, I ask us to have our eyes closed. I ask us in a moment of supreme inward delight to feel that as you may hear a sound, that you will enter the sound, that you will be conscious alone of the sound. And then, when I give you the instruction, then let the sound that you hear come forth from within you exactly as you hear it, exactly as you feel it. Let us then be still for a moment, supremely happy. Still chanting, you feel the vibration. Let us change it a little, and then let there be abundance of sound. Om. Om together. So, my beloved, we will close with that feeling. Let us be silent together. We give thanks. We give thanks. We give